today I am in the kitchen, but I won't be making any recipe. I'm just here to talk to you about Heart Health Awareness Month. So September is Heart Health Awareness Month, and on the 29th of September is World Heart Day. So I thought it would be important to come and speak to you about that, especially because of the state of chronic diseases in South Africa. In South Africa, heart diseases are one of the leading chronic diseases of lifestyle. About 225 people die every single day from either heart diseases or strokes, and 10 people suffer from a stroke every single hour. Do you imagine? Every hour 10 people are suffering from a stroke? So that just shows you how how important it is for us to actually be aware of how big an issue chronic diseases are in South Africa, especially heart diseases and strokes. So yeah, all of those stats that I mentioned just now are from the Heart and Stroke Foundation of South Africa, and they have a whole bunch of guidelines and healthy eating tips. So I'm just going to be breaking them down for you really quickly. They're quite simple, quite straightforward, easy to understand. And then I think it's also important for me to just touch on healthy fats and what healthy fats are and what that means, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that and around that. So I'll definitely be touching on that as well. So all of the sort of healthy eating guidelines actually come from the South African Food-Based Dietary Guidelines, from the UK Eat Well Guideline, the World Health Organization Healthy Diet, and basically so much more. I'm just basically going to be summarizing basically the best ways to eat healthy, to have a healthy heart. You want to keep it healthy so that you can live longer and continue to be energized, to be able to do the daily things that you usually do, Please also do remember that this video is purely for education and entertainment purposes. Yes, I am a dietitian, but you do need to go and see a specific health professional for your needs. I cannot help with any diagnostic purposes. I can't give any health tips to you specifically. I'm only here to give general health guidelines that are essentially applicable to the everyday person. So yeah, if you aren't well and if you struggle with any nutritional or health related issues, you must go see a health professional. It's the best thing that you can really do for your own health. But yeah, let's get right into it. Basically, if we can break down the guidelines. So according to these guidelines, it's really important for you to include a variety of plant-based sources of protein, because plant-based sources of protein don't only have protein, but they also have fiber and good carbs, which are really good to lower your cholesterol and really just for your heart health. And everyone knows that we all know we should be eating fruits and veg, we know that, but it's important to make sure you're consistently eating at least a variety of fruits and veg, about 5 a day, 3 veg, 2 fruit. Yeah, because that's really important to make sure you're getting enough vitamins and minerals and also some healthy fiber. It's also important for you to make sure you're getting a variety of quality carbs coming from more whole grain foods. Yes, you can still have more refined carbs. They still do have a place, but try to have a majority of your whole grain foods, like maybe oats, brown rice. Yes, you can still have white rice and fab and those things, but to try and have a majority of more high fiber carb sources. That's really good for your health and good for your heart. Another thing that's really good and important is to, when you're looking at your animal protein sources, to make sure that you're having more lean sources. So when you're going to cook chicken, take off that skin while it's still raw. Take off those pieces like amanata of the fat when you're going to be having red meat on that odd occasion, just so that you have less hard fats, because those fats are the ones that are really bad for your health and can increase your risks of getting things like high cholesterol and high blood pressure and heart diseases as well. But fat is still really important for you. It's still important to get in your healthy fats. So your healthy fats that you should be having more of when you're thinking of the fats that you should be focusing on. That's things like avocado, your nuts and seeds, your plant oils, so things like your olive oils. Those kinds of oils are really good. There's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to coconut oil. Let me explain how fats work. If it's hard at room temperature, so if when you just put it in the kitchen, then you know it's a hard or a saturated fat. So the saturated fats are the fats that are really bad for your health in the long run. So even though coconut oil has been, people have been hyping coconut oil, it doesn't actually live up to the hype. Yeah, there might be some other health benefits, but because of it being a saturated fat, it's still going to have that same effect in your body. It's going to increase your cholesterol. So hard fats increase your LDL cholesterol, which is your bad cholesterol, which ends up increasing your chances of getting those chronic diseases. So it's actually, surprisingly, it's better to go for things like your olive oil or your canola oil. Like vegetable oil itself is actually pretty good for your health. Obviously, when it comes to your oils and cooking methods, you want to try and have less and not, you don't want to add too much. I'm not saying now you can go all out with those oils, but it is also better in terms of cooking methods to use your oils that are liquid at room temperature. It's another thing that you should be doing is like cutting down. Yes, I've mentioned fats in terms of which ones are really good for you in that, but you must also try and cut down on unhealthy fats. Like, I know we love our homey comforts foods. We should be having those very much occasionally. But if you're someone who does have a lot of high-fat foods or a lot of deep-fried foods, processed foods, you should actually be cutting down on those a lot, because those are also, one, it's bad for your heart health, and two, especially with processed foods and processed meats, they're really high in salt as well, and salt is something that we're also going to touch on. So it's important to make sure that you're cutting down on those sort of unhealthier fats and having them occasionally, because they still should be enjoyed in your diet. Another thing that I love to mention, especially when we're speaking about healthy fats, is your omega-3 essential fatty acids. These are fatty acids that you need to get from your diet, and they play a really, really important role in actually reducing your cholesterol. So they are sort of a form of good cholesterol. It just improves your cholesterol levels, and really good sources of this. A lot of people, when it comes to omega-3s, think that no, you can only get it from like salmon and like those expensive fish. Or you can get it from pilchards, you can get it from sardines. And just those are naturally oily fish, and also mackerel, and you should be having that at least twice a week. Let's speak about salt now. Salt is a tricky one, because so many people will say, no, I'm gonna cut down on salt. I don't use salt, I only use aromat, I only use barbecue spice, I only use chicken spice, I only use stock cubes. All of those things have salt. Sauces also have a lot of salt. Sauces and soup packets and marinades, they all have a lot of salt in them, and obviously processed foods again also have a lot of salt in them. Takeaways, even some of your takeaways or foods from health shops may still have a lot of salt. So just be mindful of your salt intake. And another thing you can also do is to learn how to read labels. I'm anti-reading labels when it comes to calorie counting, but when it comes to salt, I think it's something that maybe you should be aware of, especially when buying processed foods. I think we all should be cutting down on our salt intake and using other ways to flavor our food to make it more tasty. You can use lemon, you can use herbs, spices that are plain, like cayenne pepper, paprika. You can use curry powder, you can use cumin, coriander, and so many more spices that can still make your food flavorful. So another way that you can reduce salt is by not putting it at the table. Don't put it at the table, adding a little bit once you've added most of your other seasoning. And going for rather not processed foods, or limiting your processed foods and trying to go for fresh ingredients. But we all do need to cut down on our salt to do that for our health and to reduce our risk of getting things like high blood pressure or hypertension. Anyone can get it. It's not something that is just, the elderly population will get. You can be young and be someone who has hypertension. I've had so many patients who are in their 30s, late 20s even, who have hypertension. So it's important to really be mindful of that now, because you remember you want to be healthy in the long run. A lot of people will say, oh no, it's fine, I'll enjoy it now. When I get old, I'll deal with those things. But the reality is, if you don't take care of your health now, these are issues that you will even have to deal with now and not later, the way that most young people think that they can just live their best lives via everything and that it won't catch up, because it does. and your health is important, so you should be taking care of it. Another thing that you should remember is that you should also be just limiting added sugars. Yes, you can have your chocolate cake on the occasion, obviously not watching your portion sizes and things, but you know, you also need to realize that added sugars and a diet high in sugars or high in sugar sweetened beverages especially can really significantly increase your risk of developing different chronic diseases, including heart diseases as well. So it's really important to enjoy food and to enjoy those sugary items on that specific day that you maybe are feeling like it. If you're someone who always has a sweet tooth, to find some healthier alternatives that can still give you the same craving or still satisfy the same craving. For example, if you're someone who really enjoys chocolate, maybe going for a dark chocolate, or if you're someone who maybe really likes milkshakes, yes, have your milkshake, but if you're always craving milkshakes like all the time, then you could maybe do a smoothie alternative that gives the same or similar flavor than that milkshake. For example, cocoa and banana smoothie because you like chocolate milkshakes. So yeah, just finding healthy alternatives can also be a way that you can still enjoy those specific tastes and still satisfy those cravings. I am a firm believer in satisfying your cravings, but yeah, obviously if you're someone who's always craving something, you shouldn't always be going for the food option that isn't as good for your health if you have a lot of it in the long run. And things like milk and dairy products I love because they're a great source of protein. They have a little bit of carbs in there. They have calcium as well, which is good for your bone health. And they also have some really good minerals. So yeah, I think it's important to also try and get in those products. If you're someone who's lactose intolerant, there is I think it's a Novavac. You can still get in your calcium and your protein and all of that from the lactose free. Okay, when it comes to dairy, there's a lot of controversy on like, do you go for low fat or do you go for full cream? If you're someone who literally just drinks milk all the time, maybe you should consider low fat. But if you're someone who just has it throughout the day, maybe you have a coffee or two and you have it in your breakfast, I don't think there's any harm in going for a full cream milk because it actually has more flavor and there isn't that big of a difference in terms of the fats. You can always compensate by having healthier fats and finding other ways to reduce fat in your diet. It doesn't necessarily have to be through your milk or dairy products. I'm a firm believer in making sure that like your food still has flavor, and I know fat is a big flavor factor when it comes to food. So when it comes to milks, choose the milk you enjoy most, but if you're someone who drinks a lot of milk, then it might be best to consider going for a lower fat milk. Another thing you should do is portion with caution, because I know that like especially as abantu abamnyama, we love to have a lot of meat, we have a lot of starch, and then the veg is like in the corner. I think it's important to make sure that you are mindful of your portions. You should be having half of a plate of just veg, and this is green leafy vegetables, not just starchy veg like potatoes and butternuts, but rather your green leafy vegetables, your colorful veg. We always say that you should be eating like you're eating a rainbow. Don't know who came up with that, but it's a nice way to think of the fact that your plate should have color. And then you can obviously have a quarter plate of your carbs and a quarter plate of your protein sources, and then don't forget to also make sure that you're drinking enough water throughout the day to hydrate your body, at least 6 to 8 glasses on average, as well as also having and making sure that you have a little bit of healthy fats in there as well, because those are very important. And so are your dairy products. And obviously if you are someone who is vegan or lactose intolerant, there are alternatives that can still meet the requirements and still have all of the goodness that dairy products actually have. So just look for those. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that this video will encourage you to eat better for a healthy heart and just a healthy life. And yeah, comment down below about what kinds of videos you would like me to post. But this is like by a signal for me, that's why. But yeah, comment down below on the videos you'd like to see more, and yeah, I'll see you next time.